So the first thing we should look at are variables. Variables are pieces of memory in your computer, which your computer actually uses to store data, which you can then interact with in your programs. I know we haven't learned how to write this code yet, but I want to use it to demonstrate how variables are used. In this example we have three variables, number 1, number 2, and total. These are three different places where we can store data in this program. We're able to assign number 1 to any number that we want. In this case I've assigned it to the number 6. And the same goes for number 2. I've assigned the number 7 in the code. We are then able to use our variables, our number 1 and number 2, to create a formula. In this case we've just added the two numbers together and saved the result as total. The next line then shows the total on the screen. Just a quick mention here, Java uses the word print to mean draw onto the screen. It doesn't mean that something's going to be printed on paper. I know that can be confusing, but it's something that you will need to get used to when you're programming. So you might think to yourself, why wouldn't you just type something like total equals 6 plus 7? That's surely easier. Or even easier still, you could just write total equals 11. Instead of number 1 and number 2, imagine we had salary and overtime, and we were trying to find out how much to pay different people. We can change the numbers very quickly, and we know the exact same calculation is going to happen each time, which you can't do if you just put the answer in straight away. Now we've used numbers 1 and 2 and total here as our variable names, but you can use any name you want to. Do try to make sure that your names for variables make some sort of sense though. If you create a variable called variable 1 or John, you're not going to remember that that variable is for in a few weeks. You'll just end up spending a lot of time trying to figure out what you were doing. But if you called your variable salary and overtime, you're much more likely to remember exactly what they're doing very quickly. There are some rules for naming variables as well as functions, classes and methods, which we will look at later. They must begin with alphabetical characters. They can contain any letters, upper or lowercase. They can contain any numbers, underscore, the dollar sign. So just a few examples. My data here is valid. This second my data is also valid, but this is a different variable to the first because we haven't capitalized the D in the first one. One data here is invalid because it starts with a number. The fourth my data here is also invalid because it includes this upwards arrow, which is not a valid character. Finally, data 1 here is valid. There are also some names which are reserved by Java in order for the language to operate properly, and that means that you cannot use any of these names when you're creating functions or variables or anything else. There are a few more words than this that you cannot use, but these are the main ones that you are likely to come across.